Do you want to learn effective ways to build relationships, generate sales, and grow your business from successful entrepreneurs, startups, and CEOs without listening to a long interview? If so, you've come to the right place. Gresham Harkless values your time and is ready to share with you precisely the information you're in search of. This is the I Am CEO podcast.
Hello. This is Gresh from the IAM625 podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Begorvin Benedictson of audioissues.com. Begorvin, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Super excited to have you on and glad I was able to hopefully pronounce your name correctly. But what I want to do is just read a little bit more about Begorvin so you can hear about all the awesome things that he's doing. And Begorvin is an audio engineer, musician, and entrepreneur from Iceland, currently living in Tucson, Arizona. He's a best-selling author of Step-by-Step Mixing, How to Create Great Mixes Using Only 5 Plugins. He helps home studio musicians make better-sounding music by teaching them how to record and produce themselves at audioissues.com. In addition to being an audio educator, he is an entrepreneur and online impact through authority building, thought leadership, and email marketing at his website. Begorvin, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I am.
Awesome. Let's do it. So I wanted to kick everything off, I guess, with where it started. I wanted to hear a little bit more about your story, your CEO story, what led you to get started with the business.
Sure. Yeah. So I started Audio Issues back in 2009 when I was studying audio engineering at the SAE Institute in Madrid. So I lived in Spain for a year and got a diploma in audio engineering. And as a way of learning things better, I started writing them down and documenting them as a blog. As you're probably familiar with, the best way to learn something is to learn the ability to be able to teach it to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And so I started writing all that stuff down, helping my fellow students learn better and understand complex audio topics. Audio engineering it's not the highest form of engineering, but it definitely has its technical complexities. And from there, I basically started the blog, started writing, and never stopped. And after graduation, I moved to the U.S., kept writing, kept going to school, went to the University of Arizona here in Tucson, Arizona, and got a degree in economics and entrepreneurship. And from there, kept building the business, kept experimenting. I think being an entrepreneur is basically all a big social experiment on yourself. You're trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. When you're just starting out, you're throwing a lot of things on the wall and nothing sticks. And you slowly learn the formula of stickiness to the point of getting customers. And then once you get that first customer, once you have the first product that actually works and sells, you can learn to scale and improve from there. So fast forward to now, I've written 6 books. Well, I count 6 books. I've actually written closer to 10 books, but I count 6 books as sort of my EPs and albums, if you will. If the previous books were demos and sort of B-sides and singles, then I have 6 ebook albums out.
Nice.
And most notably, the Step-by-Step Mixing book, which is both available in physical paperback form and as an ebook. And I've also have video courses on mixing with 5 plugins, which is basically the 20% of the audio processing that you need to know to get to 80% of the result of a professional mix. So I wanted to teach my students how to not get overwhelmed with all the possibilities of mixing and music production and focus just on the art and the song and the most important processors to get that song sounding as professional as possible. And that's sort of what I've dedicated myself to doing. That and through that, I help them gain the confidence to finish their mixes and sort of proudly release their records, because I don't think a song exists. It's kind of like the if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? If a song's sitting on your hard drive, is it really a song? It has to be released in order to be consumed and enjoyed and shared with the world. So that's my mission, is to help empower musicians and bedroom producers to do that with their own music.
Nice. I love that. And I appreciate you for breaking the kind of like the process down. Cause I think so many times we don't hear that. We don't see that. We just see like we see the first, I guess you said EP book that you created, or the last of the 6 or whatever you're on. We don't see all the steps that you did to do that. And of course, near and dear to my heart is anybody who starts out by kind of, I guess, kicking the tires, so to speak, with a blog is always near and dear to my heart. So I love that you did that. And I love how it's kind of manifests itself in you being able to continue, chop at the tree and hone your craft. But as you said in the very beginning, the true kind of genius, the true kind of sign of mastery is being able to teach others as well too. And you being able to do that is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it's definitely, I mean, it's always helpful to be uh one step ahead of, and it's also, you know, one step ahead of the students, obviously, because I am basically what's helped me a lot is, and helped me understand my students and understand my customers, is that I was them at one point. I was in their shoes. So, and then I just learned and kept studying and kept learning, kept mixing, kept working on music, and now I have this expertise to share, and I'm happy to pay it forward in as many ways as possible. And, you know, it's sort of like the teacher having the teacher manual and being one chapter ahead of the students, but maybe I'm a book ahead.
Yeah. Or an AP, right? But no, that makes so much sense. And I think I'm glad you kind of touched on that, because I don't know if I was having a conversation with somebody a couple weeks or so ago, but we're just talking about how sometimes we forget what we've learned. We forget how far we've come. And sometimes we take that for granted, and being able to kind of reach back and to help others to create books and to create knowledge for people to learn from, because we sometimes forget, because we're so driven on where we want to go, that we don't see how far we've come and how we can sometimes create and help people to get, you know, farther along than they are.
Yeah, exactly. The sort of the customer journey, and it is, you always have to keep the customer journey in mind and where they are in their journey.
Mhm.
And as entrepreneurs and experts in our field, thought leaders, what you call it,
Mhm.
whatever you call it, you sort of have to really be aware of the curse of knowledge, and
Mhm.
not overly complicate things if people aren't ready for that.
Right.
As business owners, we can throw out jargon terms all day long, but if you're starting out in business, you don't know what CTAs, CPAs, CPCs, and all of the, you know, CRMs, all of those terms are, you know, that's automation and all that stuff. But so you have to be sort of cognizant of understanding your customer to the point where you know exactly where they are and what step they need to take to get a little bit further and a little bit further. A friend of mine a friend of mine you should absolutely interview next. His name is Graham Cochran. He puts it into these phases of, you know, in online business, maybe you're in the spark stage, which is you're making you're making $1,000 a month, and then you're in the freedom stage, which is $10,000 a month or whatnot. So you have to figure out where people are, where your customers are in their journey, and meet them there. You can't really pull them up to your level. You kind of have to go share your knowledge at the point in which they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of like what I love that you've been able to kind of do in many different ways is communicate. I think that's kind of, I don't want to say a lost art, but I think sometimes, as you said, throwing out different acronyms and saying, you know, CPA and DVDs and all those things that people may or may not understand. I think that we lose the ability, or what communication is about, is really speaking to the person and being able to have that back and forth. And as you said, if somebody doesn't understand that, I think it becomes the person with the knowledge responsibility to be able to communicate so that person's understand. So that's why I love, you know, everything that you kind of been able to do and to create and build. So I know you touched on it. Were there anything additional that you do to kind of serve your clients? I know you have the books and all of that information. Is there, and I know you have your site as well too, is there anything else you wanted to kind of touch on?
Well, so, I mean, the free thing is just all the articles that I have on the website. So I've written about 1,000 articles on audio production overall in various form in the last 10 years. And then I have the ebooks that are some of our which are available on Amazon. And then I have courses and then ebooks that are bundled with complimentary courses, because music production is sort of a topic that you need to not only talk about in written form, but you kind of also have to show how it's done, because you have to be able to hear it. And then I have a membership site where people pay for monthly feedback calls and coaching calls and Q&A calls. And there's also courses inside that membership and a community that I use there. So I have that. And then at the higher level, I do one-on-one coaching and sort of mixed coaching, helping them finish their mixes, and then I master their mixes so that they sound like professional records.
Nice.
And then I do consulting on customer interviewing and customer discovery on the side as well. I was speaking up at Phoenix Startup Week a couple of weeks ago and talking about, I developed this thing called the Customer Canvas, which is a customer-centric view or approach to view your business through the lens of the customer. what problem you're trying to solve, what are their hopes and dreams and pains and fears are, and like really figuring out the psychology of who you're trying to serve and what results you're trying to give them. So
Yeah.
a little bit of consulting on the side, because in the last 10 years of being an audio engineer and entrepreneur on this online, I've learned so much about online marketing that now I feel like I can also pay a little bit of that forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I love the constant progression of everything that you're doing. As you talked about, having that book, being a book ahead. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that you continue to kind of work at your craft and you continue to chop at the tree, as I sometimes say, just because if you stop doing that, then a lot of times you aren't that book ahead. You're just maybe a sentence ahead, if that.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to not only arm yourself and arm your business, but also arm, the students and the people and clients that you're helping out and you're working with. And I think that once you look at that as not just like a task, but something as a duty, something that drives you, I think that's when it goes to an entire different level. Awesome. So you might have already touched on this, but I wanted to ask you for what I call your secret sauce, and it is for yourself or your business, but what do you feel kind of sets you apart?
Well, I think a lot of it is the personal touch that I do. I am one of the very few people that emails their subscribers back. You don't. There's no there aren't any no reply emails at audioissues.com. And it's just caring more and constantly being able to crank out the content. And I'm also really good at explaining complicated terms, because just from writing so much in the last few years, I'm really good at creating analogies that make you understand, because using an analogy, making something super complex be like something that you're already familiar with, that creates a paradigm shift where you go, oh, I get it now. And I feel like I'm pretty good at that on a different level than maybe some other people.
It makes perfect sense. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
I think meditation and exercise. Unfortunately, it's not. And you probably it's probably shared by a lot of CEOs in general, but I find that meditation is the aspect of trying to think about nothing, and then or calm your thoughts, or whatever you want to call it. But then I'm a runner, and when you run, you actually it's meditative, but in an exact opposite way. It's where you let your thoughts just go around in circles as you're running, and that helps you come up with ideas and helps you. Your subconscious is working as you're running around the park or whatever. And sometimes I have to stop because I got it. Let me write this down. If I have a particular problem or I have a particular thing that's bothering me, a lot of these quote unquote eureka moments come during runs. And I find that if I don't exercise for a long time, I get moody. I'm not as productive. I'm not as clear minded. And the same thing with meditation.
Appreciate that. And I wanted to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget. So that could be like a word of wisdom or a piece of advice, or if you can hop into a time machine, what would you tell your younger business self?
I would tell my younger business self to focus on your customers as much as possible. Research and survey and engage with them, talk to them, really dial into the emotions that they feel about the problem that you're trying to solve. Because using emotional language, understanding them, figuring out the psychology behind what makes your stuff effective for them is super, super important.
Awesome. So I wanted to ask you now for my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So Jorgen, what does being a CEO mean to you?
I think being a CEO means having the freedom to worry about everything all at once.
Jorvin, I truly appreciate that and appreciate all the awesome things you're doing. What I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you want to let our readers and listeners know. And then, of course, how best they can get a hold of you and find out about all the awesome things you're working
on. Well, one final thing, I guess it's just, I can't stress this enough is you can't have a business without a customer, and you can't have a solution without a customer that has a problem. And so if you're creating solutions that don't have problems, you're not an entrepreneur, you're an engineer. So focus on the human people behind the customer. Don't think of them as consumers or customers, obviously the word that we use, but these people are all human with hopes and dreams and desires and problems and all that. So think of their lives, think of what they're trying to figure out, what they're trying to solve. If you're in a B2C business, You're obviously trying to solve a different problems than if you're in a B2B business. But even in a B2B business, who is the person that's going to say, who's the decision maker that's going to say yes or no to your proposal or whatnot? What are they trying to get out of it? Because sometimes they're just thinking, will this decision make me look good, or is it just going to make me lose my job if this goes south? So think of those things. Think of them as human beings with just as fragile of egos as the rest of us.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so Audio Issues is, or audio-issues or audioissues.com is my main website, but I have the customer canvas at customercanvas.net, which is sort of a free, it's basically my methodology of thinking about the customer. You can download that there. And then I have my site at bbenedictson.com, which is just sort of my blog about entrepreneurship and online marketing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. I truly appreciate you. And we will have those links and information in the show notes, but I definitely appreciate you for reminding us as well, too, because I think so many times in business, we think about numbers, we think about, marketing plans and strategies and all these things. We kind of forget that human aspect, and to really drill down and get that emotional connection and express ourselves and connect is really what a lot of us are hoping and wishing for. And we want those brands and businesses to do that as well, too, with us. So definitely appreciate that North Star reminder. And I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you for listening to the I Am CEO podcast powered by Blue 16 Media. Tune in next time and visit us at IAM625.co. I Am CEO is not just a phrase, it's a community. Be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating. Grab CEO Gear at www.ceogear.co. This has been the I Am CEO podcast with Gresham Harkless. Thank you for listening.